Up, Dan and Amy, good morning. And over the weekend, special appearance at Willow Creek. This is major Christian church. I think everybody in the suburbs knows about it.
Have you ever been?
I've never been to Willow Creek.
Oh, you have to go.
Yeah. No, I'm all for interfaith experiences and learning. A special guest this weekend at Willow Creek Services was Michael Franzese, former mobster with the Colombo crime family in New York, who, after a stint in prison, or I think during a stint in prison, converted to Christianity and left a life of crime behind him. In Chicago, part of Prison Fellowship, Willow Creek does this prison pack where 70,000 packages are assembled for prisoners, like basically every prisoner in the state of Illinois. That's how many we're talking about. But also Mr. Franzese believes he may have some insight into how to help Chicago combat its violent crime program. And we're pleased to be joined by Michael Franzese now. Mr. Franzese, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. So, I don't know, just kind of briefly, I gave a very thumbnail sketch of your trajectory that brought you to Willow Creek on this past weekend. But tell us a little bit about your life before converting to Christianity and your life since.
Well, I grew up under my dad, who was the underboss of the Colombo family, one of the 5 New York La Cosa Nostra families. So I grew up in that environment and originally was on my way to becoming a doctor. I was a pre-med student, Hofstra University in New York, when my dad was convicted in federal court and handed a 50-year prison sentence. And at that point in time, I made a decision to try to help him out on the street and kind of follow him into that life. And he proposed me for membership back in the early 70s. And in 1975, I took an oath and became a made man in the Colombo family. And I came in as a soldier. In 1980, I was appointed a caporregime, or captain. And for the next 15 years or so, I was, a pretty active part of that life. I became a major target of law enforcement myself. I was indicted several times. I had 2 federal racketeering cases, one brought on by Rudy Giuliani. I was acquitted in that case. And, then at some point in time, I met a young woman who's now my wife of 31 years. She was a young girl of faith, a young Christian woman. And based upon her faith and that of her mother's, who was another strong Christian, I decided to try to walk away from that life because I wanted her in my life. And as part of that, I took a plea for another federal racketeering case. I got a 10-year sentence, had a $15 million restitution, $5 million in fines, went off to do my time. And it was during that time that I became a person of faith, and I did just about 8 years in prison and just came out with a whole new outlook. And I've been doing that ever since. I've been, working with all the pro leagues, teaching our young people not to get involved in gambling, the dangers of gambling, the relationships that they keep. I've also been at over 300 universities throughout the country and several hundred churches over the past several years, just giving my testimony, and then was asked by Willow Creek this past few weeks to come in and support their prison pact that I am highly supportive of. I think Willow Creek has the best program that I've ever seen for reentry and for taking care of families and trying to turn these guys' lives around so that they don't come out and continue to wreak havoc in the community. And it was a great weekend. They put together 65,000 packs, and it was 65,000 because last year they had 70,000 inmates. This year they have 65,000, so that's a good sign, I guess. But it was a great weekend, and while I was here, I've spoken to some other city officials that have asked if, I could be instrumental in any way to help them allay this gang situation here, something that I've been working with now for the past 15 years. So we'll see if that goes any further, but I made them understand that these programs don't work if they're not faith-based, because I work with many prison ministries, and the recidivism rate on these, the real ones, are next to zero. And I think Willow Creek has got the best that I've seen anywhere in the country, and it should be a model for every other ministry and every other city that's trying to, really convert these gangbangers into productive citizens.
So, Michael,
before they go to prison.
Yeah, what do you say to those gangbangers to try and, persuade them not to continue on the path that they're on?
Well, listen, there is a real intrigue with my life, and I found that not to be not only here in America, but all over the world.
You're
And,
getting a text message.
they look up to me. I tell them straight out, I left the biggest gang in the world, and there's a way to do that. And I try to direct them into that program. I found out when I spent 8 years in prison, a lot of these young kids were coming into the system. And you could write the same script for every one of their stories. No father figure in the house, their mom trying to do their best, maybe not trying to do their best. They gravitate to the local gangbanger, local drug dealer. Before you know they're doing their bidding. They really didn't have many options. I had options. I could have stayed out of that life. I chose to go into it, but they didn't have many options. And if they're given an alternative, a better way to redirect their life and get off the streets, they'll do it. Many of them will, and it's been proven through all of these faith-based programs that I work with.
Have you had the opportunity to get into the schools at all? Because it seems to me this is another area. The home life isn't particularly good, but also the quality of education that many of these individuals have access to is very poor, and so the school just becomes another incubator for bad behavior.
Well, you're so right about that. And I haven't had that opportunity yet here in Chicago, but I've done it in other schools all over the country. I mean, the unfortunate thing now is that bringing me into middle schools because these kids are starting at such a young age to be redirected in the wrong way. So, yeah, I mean, it's a whole process. Look, my answer to this, you look for the origin or the root cause of these problems, and it's really because of the breakup of the family. It all starts there. And these guys and young women, they don't have any guidance. And unfortunately, it's something that we have to deal with because I don't know if that's going to change the way things are going here in our country. But we have to get a hold of them at some point and give them a better option.
It seems to me, not to interrupt, but it seems to me what you're saying is in terms of, the race doesn't matter, the gender doesn't matter, what the gang is doing, whether it's gambling or drugs, doesn't really matter. It's kind of the same dynamic. And so you're in a unique position to talk to guys that are, gangbangers on the streets of Chicago about your experience and where it led you to and where it's going to lead them to if they don't change course.
You're so right. I wish you could have been with us. I went with a few people from Willow Creek into Cook County Jail Thursday night. It's something I do quite often. And we went to, a couple of hardcore places in there and spoke to several hundred men. And I wish you could have seen. I mean, these guys are on the edge of their seats. I mean, they huddled around me afterwards. They hung on every word that I was telling them because I said, look, I've been there, I've done that. I said, probably I was a lot worse than most of you guys. I spent 20 years on the street every day in violation of both God's laws and the laws of man. And I understand the situation that you have. And I told him, I said, look, you commit a crime, there's consequences to your actions, and nothing's going to take that away. I said, but what do you do when you get out of here? You're going to go back to the same thing? You're going to redirect your lives. And believe me, I get their attention. And I know that we can do something about this violence and this gang wars that are going on here in Chicago if we get the support and we're given the right opportunity. And I told the state officials that I met with and I'm also meeting with this morning, I wouldn't be involved in any program unless it's a faith-based program like Willow Creek because they have the answer to every situation that these guys are going through. It's an amazing program, and it should be the model for everywhere across this country.
Hey, Michael, you said you're meeting with city officials. Who are you meeting with today?
Well, they didn't want me to say anything yet this morning. I mean, we're going to try to work on this quietly and see if we can come up with something. And then when they see fit, they'll make the announcement. But there's nothing in place at this point. But we're hopeful that they follow through. And this is my second meeting, so it seems that there is some seriousness involved in this.
I want to also get your take on another cause you've gotten involved in, and that is with respect to Christian genocide in the Middle East, Syria and Iraq, and particularly at the hands of ISIS. Kind of an underreported story, in my opinion, in this country, but it is recognized as a genocide. And how are you trying to intervene to provide some assistance to Christian refugees?
Well, there again, I don't know if you realize the generosity of Christian churches throughout this country. And if they have a cause that people are serious about, that they can do something about, the congregants are so generous. And I can give you examples because, again, I've been in over 1,300 churches throughout the country and many mega churches like Willow Creek. And a lot of the genocide that's going on, I mean, it's far removed from us because it's in the Middle East, but it's tragic. And some of the stories that are coming back are just horrible. And ISIS is being funded, and there's always it's something I learned in court all the time. They always tell you follow the money, and it's not too different here. I mean, there's a funding source that we've been able to identify. And, without the money, ISIS is not going to be able to do too many things. It's one area that we're going to be able to attack, I think, and try to help allay some of this violence that's going on and help these guys, these Christians either escape or migrate to another place or maybe get this under control. And look, this is a three-pronged effort. I mean, the government's got to get behind this, the military's got to get behind this, and the private sector has to do their thing. And if we can get all three to gel, and maybe under this new administration they've expressed some interest in doing that, I think we can make a real dent in the problem. And that's what we're pursuing.
All right. Michael Franzese, thank you so much for joining us, sharing your story as well as your current endeavors. Good luck with your good work.
Appreciate that. Thanks very much.
And I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.